insights, mystical insights from the Hachaim. And this week we have some interesting insights from the Hachaim. It's based on the first verse in the Parsha. The verse says, Vayiyu Chayei Sara, and it was the life of Sarah, Meya Shana, V'Yesrim Shana, Sheva Shana, 100 years, 20 years, and 7 years, which the way it's normally translated is her life was 127 years. Shnei Chayei Sara, these were the years of Sarah's life. So there's a number of questions that deserve to be asked about this verse. Number one, the question is, why does it say Vayihiyu Chayei Sara? And it was the life of Sarah. What's wrong with it? It was the life of Sarah. Well, first of all, when the Torah talks about calculating people's years on this earth, the common term is not Vayihiyu Chayei. It's not and it was the life of so and so. The common term is Vayechi, and he lived, or something along those lines. So Vayihiyu Chayei Sara. Vayiyu is an interesting word. Vayehi often, and Vayiyu it's derived from Vayehi. Vayihiyu is derived from Vayehi, and Vayehi. In fact, the Gemara says that Vayehi often means a sad time, negative thing, and it was, and it happened. And the Vayehi, so the Gemara talks about if it says Vayehi bimei or just Vayehi, but the understanding of the Gemara is that Vayehi, well, it's also a medrash. The medrash says that, you know what the word Vayehi comes from? Vayehi comes from the word vai, oivai. Ever heard the term oivei? So vai means something negative, pain. Oh, it's tutvei. It's feeling painful, and so vayehi is like a combination of two words, vai and haya. It was painful. There was woe. There was issues. So the Vayiyu is surprising that it mentions, and it was the life of Sarah, 100 years, 20 years, 7 years. Now that's the second issue, that besides Vayehi or Vayiyu, which sounds surprising, then you have the next issue where it says the life of Sarah was this 127 years. Meaning that she lived 127 years, but it doesn't say 127 years she lived. It says she lived 100 years, she lived 20 years, and she lived 7 years. So that's also a little surprising. Now, a third issue is that it says, and it was the life of Sarah was 100 years. Shouldn't it say the years of the life of Sarah? Or the days of the life of Sarah? It doesn't say Vayiyu Yemei Chayei Sara or Shnei Chayei Sara, the years or the days of Sarah's life. Instead, it says, and it was the life of Sarah. So again, what we're going to be seeing are some insights, deep insights. Number one, Kabbalistic ideas about death and about life of the righteous even after death. Very interesting insights. And this is, of course, very apropos in this Parsha, in this Torah portion, because what is the theme of the Torah portion? It's about the life of Sarah and how ultimately she passes away at 127 years old. And then, of course, we have the marriage of Yitzchok. So these are the two major elements in this parsha. Is that Sarah dies and Yitzchok gets married. Yes, David.
Does the Or Chaim deal with any gematrias?
I'm sure he does. Off the I don't have them. I don't have any specific gematria. I believe we've mentioned a few over the the Thursdays that we've studied our Hachaim.
No, because I have one and I don't want to spoil it if you're going to mention it.
Oh, say it.
Okay, so the gematria of the word Vayiyu is 37, which represents her primary years, those which followed Yitzchok's birth. She was 90 years old when he was born, and the total number of her years was 127. That's 37. Which the word Vayiyu is the gematria
so that's
of 37.
interesting, and I'll tell you why it's interesting that you mentioned that. Is the Or Chaim is going to have a little different calculation. He doesn't mention, at least here, that gematria. I didn't see it, but he does have a different calculation of how many good years she had. So you were saying the Balaturim, right? The Balaturim says that she had 37 good years. The Or Chaim is going to say she had 27 good years, and we'll soon see what the Or Chaim's calculation is. But the interesting thing is that Vayehi often means negative, but the way the Balaturim is explaining it, what David just mentioned, it sounds like he's hinting to the positive years of Sarah's life. So
actually uses the word primary years.
Primary years.
He doesn't say good years. He says primary years.
Mm-hmm. So, in other words, it's not about good or bad. It's more about accomplishment years, would you say? Or what would you mean by prime? That, I mean, she accomplished a lot in her earlier years of bringing many people, connecting them to Hashem.
He said he used the word Iker. Iker Shenoseha.
Her main years. I mean, what was her main thing? I mean, she brought up her son. I mean, she also brought a lot of people into the fold. I wonder, I would think maybe what he means is her years of happiness, main years. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, that's an interesting thing. Why does he mention? So what does he say? He says the main years after she finally had a child. So those were her main years. I guess what he's saying is the main years are for a woman is bringing up the children. Would that be the main years? Even though she brought a lot of people into the fold, but I guess what he's saying is that the main years of a woman is her children.
He says the primary years were those which followed Isaac's birth.
Right.
That's a 37, which is the gematria of VU by EU.
Right, but what made those the primary years more than the others? Especially because, like Rashi says, or we find it mentioned other times that she filled her years every year. She accomplished, Shnei Chayei Sara. There's such insights. Kulan Shavin Latova. Rashi says they were all equal for good. They which seemingly mean that they were filled with goodness, with good activities. So why would you call the other ones primary years? It deserves to be thought about. That's definitely an interesting insight. I guess you could just say on a simple level that's bringing up her child. In other words, that there is a Gemara that says Ein ha'isha ela labanim. When the girls used to go and try to they had these singles events for Tu B'Av and Yom Kippur. So it says some of the women, if they didn't have the yichus and they didn't have the ones that had yichus, they would say Ein ha'isha ela labanim. That the main thing of a woman is the children. You want them to be good. You want them to be righteous. So the main, you could say the ikar of a woman is that she's great at bringing up the children. Notice, of course, she has many other jobs, but there's a main point, a main part of her life is the bringing up the kids. So maybe you could say that's why 37 years she was. Those are the main years. Well, in any event, the Hachaim is dealing with a lot with these questions here. Number one, vayihiyu is a term that's often used for something negative, like vayihi bimei Achashverosh. In the days, it was in the days of Achashverosh when the Jewish people ended up in a terrible situation where they wanted to, that Achashverosh, Haman wanted to kill the entire Jewish people. And then you have Vayehi b'mei shvoit hashoiftim. Often, whenever you have Vayehi, it's considered something negative. And here we have Vayiyu, which is connected to the word Vayehi. And again, I explained that Vayehi is negative. It has to do with the etymology of the word Vayehi, that Vai means oivai. Vai means woe. So Vayehi, and it was woe. It was woeful. And so Vayiyu Chayei Sara. So what is the meaning of this negative? And additionally, it's not the normal way of announcing the Torah telling us how long someone lived. Normally it would say Vayechi, not Vayiyu. Say Vayechi, he lived this amount of time. And then we had also, it doesn't say Vayiyu Yemei Chayei Sara, the days or the years of the life of Sara. And then we had the question of why does it divide up? Meya Shana, the Yesrim Shana, the Sheva Shanim, it divides it up into three different categories: 100 years, 20 years, and 7 years. And then it ends off, and this is the final question, that it says Shnei Chayei Sara, these are the years of Sarah's life. So imagine I told you a sentence. I said, and Sarah lived 127 years. These are the years of Sarah's life. That would be redundant. I just started off the sentence, and Sarah lived 127 years. Why do I have to finish it off saying, these are the years of Sarah's life? So we've got the first verse pretty clear now, and a number of questions that are asked on the first verse. And Hachaim doesn't spell out all of these questions, but he starts off saying, why does it say Vayiyu and it doesn't say Vayechi? So he mentions the first question, and he said it also could say Ve'ela Shnei, not Vayiyu Shnei. So it could say Elash, these are the years instead of Vayiyu. So he says one way of understanding this is that it's mentioning something sad. Vayiyu, again, we said it means vai. It actually is talking about something sad. That Sarah died under a sad circumstance. What was that? Well, the Medrash says that when she heard that Yitzchok, the Medrash says that when Sarah heard that Isaac was, when Sarah heard that Isaac was being brought as a sacrifice on the altar and he was tied up, she heard about Akedas Yitzchok, that Yitzchok was tied and was about to be slaughtered to Hashem. So her soul left her body. So that was a sad way to pass away. In other words, of course, she was very devoted to Hashem, and this is what Hashem wanted. But the pain of such a thing caused her to die. Now, the Hachaim is not saying that she died before her allotted time. That's going to be the next insight. This insight of the Hachaim is that she passed away when she was supposed to at 127 years. This was the time when Hashem gave her 127 years on earth, and she was supposed to die. But what was the method of her passing it was that she heard about her son as being is tied down as a sacrifice to be brought to Hashem, and she just couldn't handle that, and she passed away. So the reason why it uses the word vayiyu, and it was, which is a sad term, vai, from the word vai, oy vai, from such a term, it's mentioning this term because she passed away in other words, it's hinting to us how she passed away. She passed away from this sad feeling or the sad situation where she found out that her son is being sacrificed and she passed away. And so that is what the pasuk is telling us, that is, in other words, it's basically hinting to the medrash. It's hinting to the story in the medrash that she passed away. Let me just mute everyone, and then Mordechai, you'll unmute yourself if you don't mind and ask your question. Okay, so so it's hinting to the medrash that she passed away from hearing the news. Yes, Mordechai.
Yeah, the Mayam Louise says that she asked a giant to see what he could see, and the giant told him about the Akeda going on, and that's
right, right. So I believe there's a medrash that says it a little differently, that it was what the angel told her, but I don't see such a medrash in front of me, so I don't know. I'd have to look it up and see if there is such a medrash. But
Rabbi?
Yes, Moshe.
Well, I don't want to interrupt what you're completing, but it almost seems like there was an Akeda, there was a sacrifice, and it seems like Sara was the sacrifice because she died as soon as she found out that her son might have been.
That's an interesting little insight, Moshe. Very interesting what you're saying. That in a certain sense, Sarah was sacrificed. Isaac, according to the simple understanding, he lived, but Sarah passed away. So it's like someone did pass away from the sacrifice. Very interesting, Moshe. Deserves to be looked into to see if any commentaries talk about it. Very nice, nice thought. So in any event, we have here from the word vayiyu hinting to this fact that although Sarah lived out her allotted time, nevertheless, what was the actual cause of death, or the moment of the actual scenario of death, was where she heard about her son. And I wonder if like, why do we need to know that? Why is what do we gain by having that knowledge of how she passed away? She passed away what was going on, and she died from a heart attack when she heard that her son was being sacrificed. What is the meaning? What would the reason be? Why would the commentaries, why would it be important for the Torah to hint that to us? And why does the Medrash spell it out? The Medrash says that story, and that, or as Mordechai told us, that she had asked the giant, and the giant told her that it's that he sees him being sacrificed, and she passed away. Like, why do we need to know what was the method of how she passed away? And any thoughts on that? Anyone have any thoughts of what we gain from knowing that she passed away from pain, from the pain of thinking about her son?
I think the more details you know, the more it fills out the story and helps the story make sense.
So, like, in what way does it help it make more sense?
She just didn't pass away in a vacuum. She passed away because someone told her, and maybe she passed away in a sense prematurely.
So the Hachaim is not learning prematurely. We'll see that that's the next insight, where she passed away, that she wasn't her allotted time. But this insight, according to the Hachaim, at least at this, the understanding of this insight is that it was her allotted time. It's just that this was the method of her passing. But it could be that it's adding to the story that it was really Avraham who brought his son to the Akedah and not Sarah. In other words, Sarah wasn't aware of this story from the beginning. It was Avraham that was aware, that was involved. Sarah, which is obvious, Avraham was involved, but the point is, did Sarah know what was going on? So it's adding an insight. Not only she didn't know, she actually passed away when she heard about it. And so that, that could be a little insight there of what the Torah is hinting to us, that that's part of the story, that even though the end of last week's Parsha, we have the story of the Akedah where Isaac is sacrificed, but it was really a test to Abraham. That was not a test to Sarah. And maybe the Torah is telling us that would not have been a proper test to Sarah. It's not a test that you can really that a woman could handle, and only someone like Abraham maybe. I'm just trying to understand or offering some thoughts on the meaning of the story and why it's hinted. Why is it being hinted to us? Yes, David.
He said about, I don't know, I don't want to interrupt if I'm telling you too many things, but Baal Term says a very interesting thing. He says the words Shnei Chayei Sara, because it could have said Yemei Chayei Sara. Why does it say Shnei? It not only means the lives, the years, but it can be understood as the two lives. Shnei, like Shnayim, two lives of Chayei Sara. What is the two lives? So the Perush Harokeach says that that the Shnei Chayei Sara can be understood that the two lives. What are the two lives? Youth and old age, followed by youth and old age. Because she was restored to her youth in order to give birth, and then as she became old again, her youthful days ceased a second time. So these are the two lives of Sara.
Right. So these are very nice. That's a very nice little insight. The question is, again, like, what do you learn from these from this story? Why does the Torah have to repeat it? It's a nice insight, but it's like, what do you learn from that? So it deserves to be thought about. These are good things to think about, instead of people thinking about all the crazy politics, all the crazy politics. Other things that we schmooze about. So you have, like, why is the Torah telling us this? Why does the Torah have to hint that? We sort of know it also from the other verse. But in any event, the Hachaim has this insight about that it's Tsar. Then he says, and there's another understanding. And the next insight is that she passed away before her time. And if not for this story, she would have actually lived longer. And so when it says Vayiyu, and it's actually saying, and they became, Vayiyu, and they became, which means that the days of Sara became 127 years. Vayiyu Chayei Sara, that in other words, she wasn't meant to pass away now. She was meant to live longer, but her years became Vayiyu, and they became 127 years, which and through this story, through the story of what just happened in the end of the previous Parsha, the end of Vayera, so that is what caused that her life was shortened, and she only lived 127 years. And then the Hachaim comes back to this in a moment. He says, and what's the end of the verse? It says, what's the Chayei Sara? What does it mean? The next words, Vayiyu Chayei Sara, the life of Sarah. It doesn't say Yemei Chayei Sara, the days or the years, in the beginning of the verse. It says in the end of the verse, but it doesn't say in the beginning. He says, because the righteous, they are mechaya their days. So it's not that there are days of the life of Sarah. It's that Sarah makes those days because she brings holiness and spirituality into the days, while the wicked, the days is what gives them life. But Chayei Sara, this is what Sarah gave life to. And it became the life of Sarah, that Sarah gave life to 127 years, that she invested holiness and spirituality, and she gave life to the days. The wicked, the days are what give them the life. By a tzaddik, it's the tzaddik that gives life to their days by serving Hashem and bringing holiness into each day. Now, and the point is that, what is the meaning of that? The meaning of that is that by a tzaddik, the tzaddik is connected to the eternal. So the tzaddik can bring life into other things. Rasha, it's basically Hashem gives life to the wicked, but they're not connected to Hashem, that they would be bringing life to something else. It's just sort of like the days give them life. It's all about the physical experience that they have, their physical existence, their physical situation. Everything is material, and whatever lifespan is allotted to them, that's what they have. The righteous, on the contrary, they are the life, and they're giving life to other things. So it says, Chayei Sara was what Sarah gave life to. It doesn't say the days of Sarah's life. It's the Chayei Sara. This is the life of Sarah, but she gave life to the days. It's an interesting insight as to the importance of how we should not look at the fact that we are here for a certain amount of years, and Hashem gives, and the days are what we're here for. It's the opposite. We are giving life to the days. We should look at ourselves the same way. Even though we might not be tzaddikim, but we're connected to Hashem, and we are giving life to the days, not that the days are giving life to us. And then the Hachaim goes back and to the two interpretations that we just mentioned about the word Vayiyu. And he says, look at the end of the verse. The end of the verse, which David was just quoting, Shnei Chayei Sara. These are the years of the life of Sarah. And I mentioned the question that the Hachaim is bothered with is, why does it repeat itself? It starts off, these are the years of these are the life of Sarah, and then it repeats itself in the end of the verse. It gives a recap. And these, it starts off, these are the years of Sarah's life, 127, and those are the years of Sarah's life. Okay, again, thank you. You repeated yourself again. So why is that? Why is it repeating it? So he says, according to the first interpretation, that she passed away from pain, but she lived out her allotted days. He says, this is what the pasuk is ending off. Shnei Chayei Sara, those were her years that she was meant to live. In other words, don't think that she passed away prematurely. She lived those years. Yeah, she passed away from that cause, but she that was the method of how she passed away. But she lived out her days. She lived the full. This was her allotted time. She lived it to the fullest. And this is how she passed away. So the pasuk is telling us that her life was not shortened. It was lived out fully. She got the amount of time that she was supposed to. That's Shnei Chayei Sara. That's the end of the verse that repeats itself. It's not repeating itself. It's saying that was how much she was supposed to live, and that she lived. And what I think the Hachaim is saying is there's